Rule 1. Never ignore small noises after midnight. My name is Margaret Griffin, I'm 58 years old, and I thought I had my life figured out. I live in a comfortable ranch house with my husband of 32 years, and I pride myself on being independent and sharp as ever. But apparently, the people closest to me had been having conversations about my mental state without including me in the discussion. It started innocently enough. Linda Chen had been my best friend for over 15 years, ever since we met at a book club that dissolved after 6 months, but left us with a lasting friendship. She's always been the practical one between us, the type who keeps detailed calendars and never forgets a birthday. Linda works as a nurse at the local hospital, which I suppose gave her some authority in everyone's eyes when it came to health matters. She's 54, divorced, and has always been protective of the people she cares about, sometimes to a fault. The morning I discovered the texts, Linda had asked to borrow my phone because hers had died, and she needed to call her daughter about picking up her granddaughter from school. I handed it over without thinking twice. When she went to the bathroom, her phone buzzed on my kitchen counter, and I instinctively reached for it, thinking it was mine. The screen lit up with a message from my daughter Sarah. "Mom seems more forgetful lately. Did you notice how she kept repeating that story about the grocery store incident? Maybe we should contact Dr. Patterson about an evaluation." "Margaret, is everything okay?" Linda's voice from the hallway made me nearly drop the phone. I quickly set it back down and tried to compose myself. "Fine, just fine," I managed, but my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. You seem a little tired lately," she said, refilling her coffee cup. "Are you sleeping well?" Later that day, after Linda left, I called my husband James at his office. James Griffin is 60, recently retired from his job as an accountant, and spends most of his time now working on home improvement projects and complaining about the state of his golf game. We've had our ups and downs over 3 decades of marriage, but I've always counted on his honesty. "James, I need to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. Have you been talking to Linda about concerns over my memory?" The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Margaret, honey, we're all just worried about you. You've been a little scattered lately, and Linda thought maybe it wouldn't hurt to have someone take a look, just to put everyone's mind at ease." I walked over to her house that evening, still feeling raw from the day's revelations. "Carol, I need to talk to someone, and I need them to listen without trying to fix me or manage me. Can you do that?" She invited me in, made tea, and listened as I explained everything I'd discovered. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "But that's just it," I said. "They didn't give me the chance to be part of the conversation. They made me the subject instead of including me as a person who gets to have opinions about my own life." Carol nodded thoughtfully. "So, what do you want to do about it?" It was the first time all day anyone had asked me what I wanted, but what I discovered next, the pieces aligned. That question hung in the air between us. What did I want to do about it? I'd been so focused on feeling betrayed that I hadn't really thought about my next steps. Carol sipped her tea. "Maybe the conversation needs to start with James first. He's your husband. If anyone should have talked to you directly, it was him." She was right. Linda's involvement stung, but James was the real betrayal. 30 years of marriage, and he'd chosen to conspire with others about my well-being instead of talking to me. I went home that night and found James in his den, reading. He looked up when I entered, and I could see the guilt written across his face. "We need to talk," I said, settling into the chair across from him. "Really talk this time. Margaret, I know you're angry, but stop. Let me speak first." I took a breath. "James, in 30 years of marriage, when have I ever been unreasonable about health concerns? When you had your heart scare, Did I sneak around behind your back talking to other people about what to do with you? He shook his head slowly. James set down his book and leaned forward. You're right. I was wrong. I guess I thought if we approached it carefully, got Linda involved because you trust her, it would be easier. Linda's worried too, Margaret. We all are. You forgot about Emma's birthday party completely. You left the stove on twice last month. Yesterday you couldn't remember where you parked at the grocery store and spent an hour looking for the car. But it's been happening more often with you, and when we try to talk about it, you get defensive. James was quiet for a long moment. You're right about how we handled it. But Margaret, we're scared. We don't know how to help you if something really is wrong. The honesty in his voice stopped my pacing. I'm scared too, James. Do you think I haven't noticed? Do you think I don't lie awake wondering if these little things mean something bigger? But being scared doesn't give you the right to exclude me from my own life. That seemed to hit him. His shoulders sagged. What do you need from me? Okay, I can do that. But if there are more concerning signs, will you listen? Will you consider seeing someone? I thought about that. Yes, but as part of a conversation with you, not as the end result of your investigation with Linda. We talked until nearly midnight, really talked in a way we hadn't in months. James admitted he'd been terrified of losing me and didn't know how to express that fear. I admitted that my own anxiety about the memory lapses had made me defensive when they were pointed out. But the situation with Linda still felt unresolved. James had explained his motivations, and while I didn't agree with his methods, I could understand them. Linda was different. She'd violated our friendship by pretending to support me while secretly evaluating me. The next morning, I called her. Linda, I think we should meet, just the two of us. Oh, Margaret, good. I was hoping we could talk. I know you're upset about yesterday. I'm more than upset, Linda. I feel betrayed. But I want to understand your side before I decide what to do about our friendship. There was a pause. Our friendship isn't in question, is it? Margaret, everything I did was because I care about you. We'll see. Can you meet me at Riverside Park in an hour? I want to have this conversation somewhere neutral. When Linda arrived, she immediately tried to hug me, but I stepped back. We sat on a bench overlooking the water, and the distance between us felt vast. Linda explained to me how secretly coordinating with my family about my mental health was an act of friendship. I wasn't being secret. I was being careful. You've been so sensitive about any mention of memory issues that I thought you'd go behind my back instead of being honest with me. That's not fair, Margaret. I've tried to bring this up with you before, and you always change the subject or get defensive. I turned to face her fully. When? When did you try to have an honest conversation with me about your concerns? I haven't been taking notes. Then how were you able to give James such a detailed list of concerning behaviors? How did you know exactly what to tell this doctor friend of yours? Linda's face flushed. I notice things because I care. You notice things because you've been looking for problems? There's a difference. I stood up. Linda, I need some time to think about this. About us. Margaret, please. You're overreacting. When you get the evaluation and everything comes back normal, you'll see we were just looking out for you. And what if something is wrong? What if there is a problem? Do you really think discovering it through deception and betrayal is the way to help me handle that news? For the first time, Linda looked uncertain. I just wanted to help. Help requires trust and honesty. What you did was manage me, and I won't be managed by my friends. I walked away, leaving Linda on the bench. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Margaret, this is Dr. Chen from the neurological clinic. Linda asked me to reach out about scheduling your evaluation. Please call when convenient. My hands shook as I stared at the message. Linda had given my number to her doctor friend, without my permission. Without even waiting to see if I'd agree to the evaluation. The betrayal ran deeper than I'd realized. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at Dr. Chen's text message. The audacity of it staggered me. Linda had not only discussed my personal information with a colleague, but she'd given out my phone number as if I'd already agreed to this evaluation. When I finally drove home, I found James waiting on my front porch. "We need to talk," he said, standing as I approached. "If you're here to defend Linda, save your breath." "I'm here because she called me crying. She said you're refusing to get help and that you stormed off." I unlocked my door and stepped inside, leaving it open for him to follow. "That's an interesting interpretation of events. Did she mention that she gave my phone number to this doctor without my permission?" James closed the door behind him. "Margaret, if you just listen—" "No, James, you listen. I just received a text from Dr. Chen asking me to schedule an evaluation. An evaluation that Linda arranged while I was still sitting on that bench, probably before our conversation even ended." His face shifted slightly. "She didn't mention that." "We're not building a case. We're trying to help." James sat down heavily in my kitchen chair. "Margaret, I watched Dad struggle with his memory for 2 years before he finally agreed to see someone. By then, it was too late for the medications that might have helped. I can't watch you go through the same thing. So, your solution is deception? My solution is caring enough to risk your anger. Well, congratulations. You've definitely achieved that." I remained standing, arms crossed. "James, answer me honestly. If the situation were reversed, if I had secretly been discussing your mental health with Sarah and arranging evaluations behind your back, how would you feel?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I'd be furious. But you'd also want to know that we cared enough to be concerned, right? That's what you're going to say next. Wouldn't you?" James read the message, and I watched his expression change. That does seem presumptuous." "It's more than presumptuous. It's a violation." I sat down across from him. "James, I need you to understand something. If there is a problem with my memory, if something is medically wrong, I need to be able to trust the people helping me through it. How can I trust Linda now? How can I trust you?" "You can trust me because I'm your brother, and I love you. Love isn't enough if it comes with surveillance and secrets." My phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. "Don't answer," James said quickly. "Why not?" "Because Linda called her too. Sarah's upset." I answered anyway. "Hello, Sarah." "Mom, what is going on? Linda just called me saying you're refusing medical help and being unreasonable about everyone's concerns." "Linda called you?" "Yes, and she's really worried. She says you accused her of betraying you, but she was just trying to help. She says you need to see someone about your memory, but you're too proud to admit there might be a problem." I looked at James, who had the decency to appear uncomfortable. "Sarah, what else did Linda tell you?" "That she knows a doctor who could do an evaluation, but you walked away from her when she was trying to explain how much she cares about you." "And did Linda mention that she's been secretly coordinating with your uncle for weeks? That she gave my phone number to this doctor without my permission? That I found out about all of this by accident?" Silence on the other end. Then, "She didn't mention those parts." I imagine she didn't. "Mom, are you okay? I mean, really okay?" The question hung in the air. It was the first time anyone had asked me directly, without agenda or manipulation. I don't know, Sarah. Maybe I'm not. But I know I'm not okay with how this has been handled. Can I come over? I'm driving back from campus anyway. James is already here. Good. We need to figure this out as a family, without Linda managing the conversation. After I hung up, James looked at me with something that might have been respect. Sarah's right, he said. This should be between us. Yes, it should have been from the beginning. Margaret, I owe you an apology. Not for being concerned, but for the way we went about it. I appreciate that. But I still think you should consider the evaluation. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another text. This time, it was from Linda. Margaret, I've been thinking about our conversation. I may have overstepped, but my offer to help still stands. Dr. Chen is available tomorrow if you change your mind. I showed the message to James. She's still doing it. She's still trying to manage this situation. James shook his head slowly. She doesn't get it at all, does she? No, she doesn't. And that's the scariest part of all. The silence that followed Linda's text message felt heavy in my living room. James sat forward in the armchair he'd claimed, elbows on his knees, staring at the coffee table where I'd placed my phone face down. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, casting long shadows that seemed to emphasize the weight of everything that had been said. You know what bothers me most? I said, settling back into the couch cushions. It's not even that she went behind my back. It's that she genuinely believes she's helping, even now. James nodded slowly. That's what makes it so hard to be angry with her. Her intentions were good. But intentions don't erase the damage. I picked up my water glass from the side table, more for something to do with my hands than because I was thirsty. How am I supposed to trust her judgment about anything else? About whether I really need help? The question hung between us. James looked up at me, and I could see him wrestling with his own thoughts. His face had that familiar expression from childhood, the one he wore when he was trying to solve a problem that had no easy answer. Can I ask you something honestly? He said. Haven't we moved past anything but honesty at this point? When you forget things, how does it feel? I mean, in the moment when you realize you've forgotten? I considered his question, surprised by how carefully he'd phrased it. No assumptions, no leading statements. Just genuine curiosity about my experience. James leaned back, processing this. That sounds terrible. It is, but you know what's worse? Having people watch you for holes. Having them exchange glances when you repeat yourself or take a moment to remember someone's name. It makes you second-guess every single thing that comes out of your mouth. Is that what we've been doing? Before I could answer, the sound of a car in the driveway interrupted us. Sarah's Honda Civic, with its distinctive engine rattle that she kept meaning to have fixed. Through the window, I watched her grab her backpack from the passenger seat and check her phone before walking toward the house. She let herself in with her key, something that would have annoyed me a few years ago when she first moved out. Now it felt comforting, this easy assumption that she belonged here. Sorry I took so long, she said, dropping her backpack by the door and surveying the scene in the living room. Traffic was awful, and then I had to stop for gas, and the pump was broken, so I had to move to another one, and then the card reader wasn't working. She paused, looking at our faces. What? Did something else happen? Linda texted, I said, holding up my phone. Of course she did. Sarah kicked off her shoes and settled cross-legged on the floor, a position that reminded me achingly of her teenage years. What did she say this time? I read the message aloud. Sarah's expression grew more incredulous with each word. She's still trying to schedule your appointment, After everything that just happened? She thinks she overstepped, but she's not wrong about needing to help, I said. Mom, that's not taking responsibility. That's doubling down. Sarah looked at James. Please tell me you see how messed up this is. I do now, James said quietly. I really do. But she cares about Mom, James said, though his tone suggested he was working through his own doubts about Linda's approach. Caring about someone doesn't give you the right to make decisions for them, Sarah replied. And it doesn't mean you get to coordinate secret interventions with their family members. I watched my children discuss my situation and felt a strange mix of gratitude and sadness. Gratitude that they were here, that they cared enough to work through this together. Sadness that it had come to this at all. I need to call Linda back, I said. Both Sarah and James looked at me with alarm. Mom, no, Sarah said. She'll just try to manipulate the situation again. Maybe, but I need to set some boundaries, real ones, and I need to do it directly, not through ignored text messages or avoided phone calls. James frowned. What kind of boundaries? I don't know yet, but I know I can't keep pretending this didn't happen, and I can't let her keep thinking that her approach was just a minor misstep in judgment. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. Linda's name appeared on the screen again. She's persistent, Sarah muttered. I looked at my children, these two adults who had somehow appeared in place of the babies I remembered bringing home from the hospital. When had James developed those lines around his eyes? When had Sarah started wearing her hair in that sophisticated twist? I'm going to answer, I said. But I want you both to stay here while I do. Sarah and James exchanged a look, some silent sibling communication passing between them. Okay, James said. But if she starts pressuring you, then you'll hear it, and you can help me figure out what to do next. I answered the phone, putting it on speaker so we could all hear Linda's voice fill the room. Margaret, thank goodness. I was starting to worry that you were really angry with me. The assumption in that statement, that my anger would be unreasonable rather than justified, set my teeth on edge. But I forced my voice to remain calm. Linda, I am angry with you, and I think I have good reason to be. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Linda spoke again, her voice taking on a tone I'd heard her use with difficult students. Margaret, I understand you're upset, but I really think once you've had some time to process everything, she was going to do it again. Right here, with my children listening, she was going to try to manage me and my reactions and my feelings about what she had done. Linda, I interrupted. I need you to stop talking and listen to me. Another silence, but this one felt different, heavier. I'm listening, Linda said, though her tone suggested she was doing me a favor. I looked at Sarah and James, drawing strength from their presence. What you did crossed a line. You went behind my back to my children and tried to convince them I needed professional intervention. You made decisions about my mental health without talking to me first. Margaret, I was worried about you. You've seemed so scattered lately, and when you forgot about lunch that day... Linda. My voice came out sharper than I intended. You're doing it again. You're explaining away my feelings instead of hearing what I'm telling you. I don't understand what you want from me, Linda said, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely confused rather than condescending. The question hung in the air. What did I want from her? An apology felt insufficient given how deeply this had shaken me. But beyond that, I wasn't sure. I want you to understand, that friendship doesn't give you the right to make decisions about my life," I said slowly. "And I want you to understand that going to my children behind my back damaged my trust in you." "But I was trying to help." "Linda," Sarah interjected, her voice carrying a warning edge. "She's not questioning your intentions. She's telling you that your methods were wrong." I felt a surge of gratitude toward Sarah. She had found words I was struggling to articulate. "Sarah?" Linda's surprise was evident. "Are you there too?" "Mom asked us to stay while she talked to you," James said. "Oh." Linda's voice became smaller. "I see." The silence stretched again, but this time I didn't rush to fill it. I was learning slowly that I didn't have to manage other people's discomfort. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Margaret," Linda finally said. "I really didn't." "I believe that," I replied, "but intent and impact aren't the same thing." "So what happens now?" Linda asked. "Are we not friends anymore?" But the idea of pretending this hadn't happened felt impossible. "How much time?" There it was again, that need to control and manage the situation. Even now, Linda was trying to set the parameters for my own healing process. "I don't know that either," I said. After I hung up, the three of us sat in my living room, the weight of the conversation settling around us. "That was hard to listen to," James said, the way she kept trying to redirect everything. I stared at Sarah. "You remember that?" "Mom, we remember lots of things. We just didn't say anything because we were kids, and Linda was your friend." "But we're not kids anymore," James said. "And we can see how she treats you." The realization that my children had been observing and protecting me in small ways for years was both touching and unsettling. When had the dynamic shifted so that they felt they needed to shield me? "I've been thinking about something," Sarah said carefully. "About what Linda said, about you seeming scattered lately." My stomach tightened. "And?" "I think you have seemed different, but not in the way she described." "What do you mean?" "You've seemed sad," James said quietly. "Not confused or incompetent, sad." "The divorce was finalized 8 months ago," I said. "I thought I'd be over it by now." "Mom," Sarah said, shifting to sit closer to me on the couch. "It was a 30-year marriage. 8 months is nothing." The permission in his words unlocked something I'd been holding tight inside my chest. I had been grieving not just the marriage, but the life I'd thought I would have, the future I'd planned that no longer existed. "But life isn't neat," Sarah said, "and real friendship means sitting with someone in the mess, not trying to fix them out of it." We talked until late afternoon, my children helping me understand things I'd been too close to see clearly. How Linda's need to manage had grown stronger over the years. How I'd gradually stopped sharing the difficult parts of my life with her because I knew she'd try to solve them rather than simply listen. "What are you going to do about the friendship?" James asked as they prepared to leave. "I honestly don't know," I said. "Part of me wants to forgive her and move on, because it's easier than losing a 15-year friendship." "But," Sarah prompted. "That's not friendship," James said. "That's something else entirely." After they left, I sat alone in my house, feeling the quiet differently than I had in weeks. Not as a threat or a sign of my isolation, but as space to think. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. "I've been thinking about our conversation. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow to work this out?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I'm not ready to meet yet. I'll call you when I am." Even now, even after everything we'd discussed, she was trying to dictate the timeline and method of our reconciliation. I turned off my phone and went to make dinner, just for myself, taking my time to choose what I actually wanted to eat rather than what was quickest or easiest. As I cooked, I thought about the conversation with my children, how they'd seen me more clearly than I'd seen myself, how they'd grown into people who could offer me wisdom and support without trying to manage or control me. The irony wasn't lost on me that Linda, who had been so concerned about my relationship with my adult children, had actually helped me discover how strong and healthy that relationship truly was. But it also made me realize how much I'd been accepting less than I deserved in friendship, how I'd confused Linda's need to be needed with genuine care. The next morning, I woke to find 3 missed calls and 2 voicemails from Linda. I didn't listen to Linda's voicemails right away. Instead, I made myself breakfast and sat by the window, watching the morning light filter through the trees. For the first time in weeks, I felt no urgency to respond immediately to someone else's timeline. When I finally played the messages, Linda's voice carried a familiar edge of frustration barely contained by forced calm. "Margaret, I know you said you needed time, but I really think we should talk today. This whole situation is just creating unnecessary stress for both of us." The second message was shorter. "I'm worried about you making decisions when you're still upset. Call me back so we can discuss this rationally?" Even in her apologies, Linda was telling me how to feel and what to do. I was still processing this when my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, honey," I answered. "Mom, how are you feeling today? James and I were talking last night about everything, and we wanted to check in." "Better, actually. Clearer. Linda left some voicemails this morning, and listening to them just confirmed what we discussed yesterday." "What did she say?" I played the messages for Sarah, who was quiet for a moment afterward. "Mom, do you hear how she's still trying to control the situation? She's not asking how you're doing or acknowledging what she put you through. She's focused on getting things back to normal on her timeline." "I know. Yesterday I might have felt guilty for not calling her back immediately. Today I'm recognizing that her urgency doesn't have to become my emergency." "That's huge progress," Sarah said. "What are you going to do?" "I think I need to have one more conversation with her, but on my terms, in my house, when I'm ready, with clear boundaries about what I will and won't discuss." That evening, Linda texted again. "Margaret, I'm coming by tomorrow morning. We need to resolve this." This time, her message sparked something different in me. Not anxiety or guilt, but a clear, firm boundary. I called her instead of texting back. "Linda," I said when she answered. "You're not coming by tomorrow morning." "Margaret, thank God you called. I've been so worried about you isolating yourself and making this bigger than it needs to be." "I'm not isolating myself. I'm taking time to think, which is different." "But we've been friends for 15 years. Surely that counts for something. We can work through this misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding, Linda. You coordinated with my children behind my back to have me psychologically evaluated. You violated my trust and my privacy." "I was trying to help you," she said, her voice rising slightly. "You've been different lately, more withdrawn, and I was concerned." "Different how?" "You've been, I don't know, less social. You didn't want to go to book club last month, and you've been declining invitations to things." I realized she was describing my gradual process of making choices about how I wanted to spend my time, rather than automatically saying yes to everything. "Linda, not wanting to go to book club isn't a mental health crisis. It's a preference." "But you used to be more agreeable, more flexible about plans." There it was. I used to be easier to manage. "I'm willing to have one conversation with you. I said. Here, at my house, this weekend when I'm ready. But I need you to understand that I'm not looking to go back to the way things were. What does that mean? It means I'm not sure our friendship has been healthy for either of us for a while now. The silence stretched between us before Linda spoke again, her voice tight. I think you're making a mistake, Margaret. I think you're letting pride and stubbornness ruin a perfectly good friendship over something that was meant to help you. Maybe, I said. But it's my mistake to make. After I hung up, I sat quietly, surprised by how steady I felt. Not angry, not guilty, just clear about what I would and wouldn't accept going forward. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Hey, Mom. Just wanted to say I'm proud of how you're handling all this. I smiled, typing back, Thank you. I'm learning. But as I prepared for bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Linda wouldn't accept the boundaries I was trying to set. Her final words on the phone had carried an undertone I recognized, but had never named before. If Linda couldn't have the friendship on her terms, I wasn't sure she'd want it at all. I was right about Linda. She called Saturday morning before I'd even had my coffee, completely ignoring my request to wait until I was ready. Margaret, I've been thinking all night, and I really think you're overreacting to what was essentially a wellness check among people who care about you. Linda, I told you I'd call when I was ready to talk. But I can't just sit with this tension between us. It's eating at me. I need you to respect what I asked for, I said firmly. I'll talk to you when I'm ready. Fine, she said, her voice sharp. But don't expect me to just wait around indefinitely while you decide whether our friendship is worth saving. After she hung up, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach that I'd carried for years without recognizing it. The anxiety of never knowing when Linda would be dissatisfied with something I'd said or done. The exhaustion of constantly managing her emotional reactions to my choices. Sarah arrived that afternoon with groceries and a determined expression. I'm making you dinner, she announced, and we're going to talk about this whole situation. As she moved around my kitchen with easy familiarity, I watched her precise movements and realized how much she'd inherited from me, but also how much stronger she'd become in ways I was still learning. I've been thinking about what you said about setting boundaries, Sarah said, chopping vegetables. And I owe you an apology. For what? For not supporting you when Linda first called me. I should have told you immediately instead of letting her convince me you needed intervention. You were worried about me. That's not wrong. What do you mean? I sat with that revelation while Sarah continued cooking. How many times had I deferred to Linda's judgment about restaurants, movies, social plans, even my own feelings about situations? I don't think she means to be controlling, I said finally. Maybe not, but impact matters more than intention, right? James called while we were eating dinner, and Sarah put him on speaker. How are you holding up, Mom? Better, I think. Sarah and I have been talking about some patterns I hadn't recognized before. Good, because I have something to tell you both. His voice carried a weight I couldn't identify. Linda called me yesterday. Sarah and I exchanged glances. What did she say? I asked. She wanted me to convince you that you were being unreasonable. She said you were throwing away a good friendship over pride, and that maybe this was part of the concerning behavior she'd noticed. I felt my face flush with anger, but James continued. I told her that trying to recruit me to pressure you was exactly the kind of thing that proved you were right to set boundaries. How did she respond to that? She got upset, said she was just trying to save your friendship, and that you were forcing everyone to choose sides. Sarah shook her head. She's making this about her being the victim. That's what I thought too, James said. Mom, I think she's going to keep pushing until you either give in completely or end the friendship. After James hung up, Sarah and I cleaned up the kitchen in comfortable silence. Finally, she spoke. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Part of me wonders if there are aspects of our friendship worth preserving, but I'm starting to think Linda can't accept the version of friendship I'm willing to offer. Which is what? One where I get to say no sometimes, where I can change and grow without it being pathologized, where my boundaries are respected even when they're inconvenient for her. As she was leaving, Sarah hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Mom. I know this isn't easy. But I also knew Linda wasn't going to let this go quietly. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, but when I opened it, I recognized Linda's words immediately. I hope you're happy with the damage you're causing to people who care about you. She'd gotten a new number to circumvent the boundary I'd tried to set. I stared at the message, realizing that Linda was escalating rather than respecting my request for space. And I wondered how far she was willing to go to force me back into our old dynamic. I screenshot the message and sent it to Sarah with a simple note. She got a new number. Within minutes, my phone rang. Sarah's voice was tight with concern. Mom, this is harassment. She's not respecting your boundaries at all. You're not overreacting. Friends don't coordinate with family members behind your back to get you evaluated, and they certainly don't get new phone numbers to bypass boundaries. I walked to my living room window, looking out at the quiet street where Linda and I had taken so many walks together over the years. The familiar view felt different now, tinged with an awareness that those conversations had apparently been feeding into some larger concern about my mental state. Sarah, can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Before all this happened, did you think I was struggling? I mean, really struggling in a way that would worry you? There was a pause, and I could hear Sarah choosing her words carefully. I thought you seemed a little overwhelmed sometimes, especially after Dad died. But honestly, Mom, you seemed to be handling everything remarkably well. You were figuring out who you were as an individual again, which seemed healthy to me. But Linda saw it as concerning behavior. Linda saw change, and maybe that threatened her. You were becoming more independent, setting boundaries, making decisions without consulting her first. For someone who was used to being needed in a particular way, that probably felt threatening. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. All I ever did was care about you. I showed the screen to Sarah over video call. Her expression hardened. She's trying to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. It's working a little, I admitted. James arrived unexpectedly around noon, letting himself in with his key. He found me in the garden, pulling weeds with perhaps more vigor than necessary. Sarah told me about the texts, he said, settling onto the garden bench I'd bought last spring. I sat back on my heels, wiping dirt from my hands. I blocked the new number too, but I have a feeling she'll just get another one. Probably. James was quiet for a moment, watching me work. You know, I've been thinking about all those times Linda would call me or Sarah to check in about how you were doing. What do you mean? I always thought she was just being a caring friend. But now I'm wondering if she was gathering information, building a case. The thought made my chest tight. A case for what? For the idea that you needed help, that you weren't handling things well. James leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Mom, I think she's been positioning herself as your caretaker for a long time, and when you started needing less caretaking, it created a crisis for her. I pulled another weed, this one stubborn and deep-rooted. So what do I do? I can't make her accept that our friendship needs to change. You can't, but you can decide what you're willing to accept. That evening, Sarah came over with takeout from the Thai place we both loved. We ate in my dining room, the late afternoon light casting long shadows across the table. I've been thinking about something, Sarah said, twirling pad thai around her fork. Remember how Linda always seemed to have opinions about your decisions? What you should do about the house? How you should spend your time? Who you should date if you ever started dating again? I nodded, remembering countless conversations where Linda had offered unsolicited advice with an undertone of urgency, as if my choices were somehow urgent problems that needed her immediate input. But why? We've been friends for 15 years. Maybe that's exactly why. She got used to being the helper, the one with answers. When you started growing and changing, it challenged that role. My phone, sitting face down on the counter, buzzed again. We both looked at it. Another new number? Sarah asked. I picked it up and read. I'm not going to stop caring about you just because you're angry. She's not going to stop, I said quietly. As if summoned by our conversation, James arrived just as we were cleaning up dinner. The three of us gathered in my living room, and I felt a strange mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for the friendship that was clearly ending, but gratitude for these relationships with my children that felt more honest and equal than they ever had before. I got a call today, James said, settling into the armchair that used to be his father's favorite. From Dr. Martinez's office. My blood went cold. What? Linda apparently called them, claiming to be concerned about your mental health and asking if there was a way to schedule an evaluation without your knowledge. The room seemed to spin slightly. Sarah's hand found mine again. What did they tell her? Nothing, obviously. They can't discuss patients with unauthorized people, and they certainly can't schedule evaluations without consent. But Mom... James paused, his expression grave. The receptionist who took the call thought you should know that someone was making these inquiries. She's not going to stop, I repeated, but this time the words carried a different weight. Not fear, but recognition. No, Sarah said softly. I don't think she is. The three of us sat in the growing dusk of my living room, and I realized that Linda's latest escalation had forced a decision I'd been avoiding. This wasn't about preserving a friendship anymore. This was about protecting myself from someone who had decided my autonomy was less important than her need to control the narrative. My phone buzzed again, and this time, before I could even look at it, James gently took it from my hands. Whatever it says, he said, it doesn't change what needs to happen next. But as he glanced at the screen, his expression shifted from protective to something closer to alarm. Mom, he said carefully, I think you need to see this one. I hesitated, part of me wanting to refuse, but James's expression told me this wasn't something I could ignore. With trembling fingers, I took the phone back. The message was longer than Linda's usual texts, and as I read, I felt the blood drain from my face. I spoke with Dr. Martinez's office today about my concerns for you. While they couldn't schedule anything directly, they did give me some information about wellness checks and how family members can request them. Your behavior lately has been so erratic, and I think we both know Richard would have wanted someone looking out for you. I've been in touch with some people who can help us figure out the next steps. This is coming from a place of love. You have to know that. Sarah leaned over to read the message, and I heard her sharp intake of breath. Mom, what's a wellness check? My mouth felt dry. It's when authorities come to check on someone's mental state if there are concerns about their safety or the safety of others. What does she mean by some people who can help?" Sarah asked quietly. "I don't know." The admission felt heavy, but I don't think I want to find out. James stood up and began pacing, his agitation filling the small space. "This is insane. She's supposed to be your friend." "I don't think friendship means to Linda what it means to the rest of us," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "I think it means being right." "Being needed? Being in control?" Sarah curled up in the corner of the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. "What are you going to do?" I looked at my children, these adults who had somehow become my strongest allies, and felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in months. The fog of confusion and self-doubt that Linda had been cultivating was finally lifting. "I'm going to fight back," I said simply. "I don't know yet, but I'm not going to keep being reactive. I'm not going to keep letting her set the terms." I picked up my phone again, looking at Linda's message with new eyes. "She thinks she holds all the cards because she's been planning this while I've been trying to preserve a friendship that ended the moment she decided my judgment couldn't be trusted." "Do you think she'll actually follow through?" Sarah asked. "With the wellness check thing?" The question hung in the air, and I realized that the Linda I thought I knew never would have. But this Linda, the one who had been coordinating behind my back and calling doctors' offices, was someone I was still getting to know. "I think," I said slowly, "that we need to assume she will." My phone buzzed again, and this time all three of us looked at it with the wariness usually reserved for something dangerous. Another message from Linda appeared on the screen. As if the evening couldn't get any stranger, we heard a car door slam in my driveway. The sound of footsteps on my front porch sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the October air seeping through the windows. In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. A protective instinct I hadn't accessed since my children were small and needed me to stand between them and the world's sharp edges. But now, they were the ones standing with me, and Linda had become the threat we needed protection from. "Should we answer it?" Sarah whispered, as if speaking too loudly might give us away. Through the front window, we could see Linda's silhouette on the porch, her posture rigid with determination. She knocked again, 3 sharp raps that somehow managed to sound both authoritative and impatient. I realized I was holding my breath and forced myself to exhale slowly. This was my house. These were my children. And Linda, despite her months of maneuvering, had no real power here except what I chose to give her. "No," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "We don't owe her access just because she demands it." James moved to the window and peered through the curtain. "She's not leaving. She's just standing there." "Mom," Sarah said softly, "what if she really believes she's helping? What if she genuinely thinks you're not okay?" It was the question I'd been avoiding, because it was easier to be angry at Linda's betrayal than to wrestle with the possibility that my friend's concern might be genuine, even if her methods were unconscionable. "I've been asking myself that all evening," I admitted. "And you know what I keep coming back to? It doesn't matter what she believes if she's not willing to respect what I believe about my own life." Another knock, more insistent this time. James let the curtain fall back into place. "She brought someone with her." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "I can't tell. Someone's sitting in her car." "I need to see who it is," I said, moving toward the window. "Mom, maybe don't," Sarah said, but I was already looking. Linda's car sat in my driveway with the engine running, exhaust visible in the cold air. Through the passenger window, I could see the outline of someone else, but the darkness and angle made identification impossible. What struck me most was Linda herself, standing on my porch with her arms crossed, staring directly at the front window as if she knew I was watching. There was something in her posture that I'd never seen before. A kind of righteous determination that made my skin crawl. This wasn't the Linda who used to laugh until she cried at my kitchen table. This wasn't even the grieving Linda who had slowly become more controlling over the past months. This was someone who had decided that her version of reality was the only one that mattered, and who was prepared to enforce that reality whether I consented or not. "I think," I said slowly, stepping back from the window, "that I've been giving Linda too much credit. I've been assuming that somewhere underneath all this is the friend I used to know. But friends don't ambush friends. Friends don't coordinate behind your back with your family. And friends certainly don't show up at your house with reinforcements when you ask for space." The knocking stopped, but Linda's voice carried through the door. "I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway and the lights are on. I'm not leaving until we talk." James's jaw tightened. Should I go out there and tell her to leave? No. The word came out sharper than I intended. This is my situation to handle. But even as I said it, I felt the weight of uncertainty. What exactly was I supposed to do with a friend who had appointed herself the arbiter of my mental health? How do you have a rational conversation with someone who has already decided you're not rational enough to make your own decisions? I felt a smile tug at the corner of my mouth, the first genuine smile I'd had in hours. The third option is that I'm a grown woman who doesn't have to justify her choices to anyone, including Linda. Moving to the front door, I turned the porch light on and spoke through the closed door, loud enough for Linda and her mystery passenger to hear clearly. "Linda, I got your text messages. I understand that you're concerned about me, but showing up at my house unannounced with someone else isn't acceptable. I've asked you for some space, and I need you to respect that. Please leave my property." The silence that followed felt charged with possibility. Linda could choose to respect my boundary, to get in her car and leave, to give our friendship a chance to survive this. Or she could escalate, and in doing so, show me exactly where I stood in her estimation. "I'm not leaving until I know you're okay," Linda called back. "And bringing Dr. Peterson with me isn't unreasonable when you're clearly not thinking straight." Dr. Peterson. My mind raced, trying to place the name, and then it hit me. Richard's former colleague, a psychiatrist who had been at several social gatherings over the years. The implications of Linda bringing him here made my hands shake with anger. James stepped closer to me, his presence a steadying force. "She brought a psychiatrist to your house." "Yes," I said, my voice carefully controlled. "She did." The manipulation was breathtaking in its audacity. Linda had arranged for a mental health professional to witness whatever scene she was planning to create, presumably to lend credibility to her concerns about my stability. The fact that Dr. Peterson had agreed to come along suggested that Linda had been building her case against my mental health for longer than I'd realized. "I'm not opening this door," I called out, "and if you don't leave my property, I'll call the police." "Go ahead," Linda replied, and I could hear the confidence in her voice. "When they get here, Dr. Peterson and I will explain our concerns about your mental state. Do you really think that's going to go the way you want it to?" The threat was clear, and it was exactly the kind of manipulation that had been making me doubt myself for months. Linda was banking on my fear, my uncertainty, my desire to avoid conflict. She was counting on me to cave under pressure, to submit to her version of what was best for me. But standing there with my children beside me, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Complete clarity about who I was and what I was willing to accept. Linda could bring doctors, police, or anyone else she wanted. She could not make me believe that seeking space from toxic behavior was a sign of mental illness. "James," I said quietly, "would you call the police, please? Tell them we have someone on our property who won't leave when asked." As James pulled out his phone, I heard car doors slam outside. Through the window, I watched Linda and Dr. Peterson walk back toward the car, their conversation too muted to overhear. Linda turned back toward the house one more time, and even in the darkness, I could see the frustration in her posture. "They're leaving," Sarah observed, relief evident in her voice. I watched Linda's car back out of my driveway, but I felt no relief. This wasn't over. This was Linda regrouping, planning her next move, and I needed to be ready. Подпишитесь, чтобы не пропустить следующую историю.